Wicked for Good, part 2 of a $300 million project has just been released, with the first film receiving an impressive 7.8 out of 10 from the Late Night Machine, and them both being recorded at the same time. Will it hold up to its predecessor or not? Fred, on the count of 3, give me your strict enjoyment score.
Enjoyment score.
Out of 10, 3, 2, 1, go.
3.8.
Oh my lord, 7.0.
Wow, you really liked it.
No, 7.0 is like good, smooth. Yeah,
good,
yeah.
Okay.
I was just so excited to find out about the the follow up for the characters, where all their stories went, and I think there was a lot that wasn't like 100% great about this one,
For sure.
But I think I was just swept up in the kind of magic of the first one. Interestingly, my original score for the first one was like a 7.0 as well, and if I was doing that now. We watched a double bill, Wicked 1, Wicked 2 in IMAX.
Yes, you did, didn't you? Okay. How did
At
that
this
go?
point, Wicked 1's an 8.0 for me.
Really? So it's gone up that much?
Yeah, I love it.
Would you
yeah.
reckon that's due to the kind of having a chance to settle in with the songs in particular?
Definitely partly. And also just like, I think there were a couple of things I wasn't expecting. The complete insanity of everybody in the film.
Yeah.
Took me off guard a little bit, but I've kind of got used to that. And so loved the first part. Couldn't wait to find out the conclusion to the next part. And a lot of the good bits were carried over. The costumes, the set designs, the interesting sort of character dynamics and where they're going to go, especially with like the sister and kind of where her future laid was I was quite excited about. Nessa, that is.
For sure.
So yeah, a lot got carried over. I think the main thing that just held it back was the music maybe wasn't as memorable, and the plot was a bit kind of confusifying and bloated.
Confusifying,
and
very
it was.
nice.
It's a wicked term, that. I've watched the first film.
We're incorporating that into our lexicon. Yeah, it was quite confusifying. Okay.
So, but yeah, I think that I'm able to forgive that because I enjoyed where the characters went. I enjoyed the magic of it. I enjoyed the costumes. I enjoyed the set, and I was able to kind of look past the fact that, it was just a bit kind of, the pacing was just very clumsy.
Interesting. I would have thought, if I had to bet, I would have thought you really wouldn't like this one. I really thought it was crap.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, almost everything, it boils down to what proved to me to be just an utterly nonsensical and illogical story specifically. That's what I had the difficulty with. And like you, one thing that I would want to preface this by saying for anyone who didn't listen to Wicked Part 1 was I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
I like my musicals. I think I was in the 8s. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an 8 is great. Love the songs. I had less difficulties with some of the plot points that we had in the original than you did. And I think it was across the board. So production, performances, characters, had a great time with it. And one of the things that I was really excited about going into this one was how they set up the sequel. From me going into it, having watched Wizard of Oz, I knew my end point for a lot of these characters.
Exactly.
And based on how they'd set them up in the first film, I was really interested to see how particularly Elphaba was going to become a evil character based on what I knew from the Wizard of Oz, how Glinda ends up becoming kind of a fairy godmother figure, like an omnibenevolent figure. Yep. And without going into spoilers, I had found out some of the characters in Wicked who they related to, because they're not as explicitly obvious in the Wizard of Oz. I wasn't aware if some of these characters got brought through into the Wizard of Oz. I did find out that they did before going into this. Yeah. And without spoiling how characters end up being, which characters they end up being later on, I was really interested in finding out how we got from point A to point B.
Totally agree.
So they basically set up this kind of really nice puzzle. That
like a writing exercise almost.
Yeah, and I was really excited. And unfortunately, what I had come to realise watching this is that they'd effectively... The story of Wicked bites off way more than it can chew.
Yeah.
Trying to go from that point A to point B.
Yep.
And that's because the story itself just becomes like vapid and confused in its attempt to integrate what happens in The Wizard of Oz with the story of Wicked so Wicked for Good specifically. It doesn't matter in the first one because it's all prequel. It's like backstory that is completely non-canonical. So they have carte blanche to basically set up as much intrigue as possible. But then if you're going to try and integrate it into the events of the story of The Wizard of Oz, it doesn't make any sense for certain characters, for instance, to kind of maintain the motivations that they have, and for them to also be congruent with the Wizard of Oz characters. They're like night and day. I was excited to see how they did it, and they just didn't do it. They actually made a direct contradiction, which in several instances, but I can't go into it without going into spoilers.
No, but I think that's fair enough, yeah.
But that, you might say, that is really pedantic. Like, who gives a fuck, Fred?
That wasn't what I was going to say.
But some people could argue, like, why the
sure.
fuck do you care if something is, like, slightly contradictory? And I would say, yeah, usually I am very happy to not give a toss about narrative consistency.
Yeah.
Like, I think that a phenomenal film needs it, but it's not something that will make me
3.8.
Exactly. However, that's if the film is good. And for me, I find it interesting that you really enjoyed it, because I genuinely found it to be like dreary, charmless, like a bit of a labor to go through.
Yeah.
All of the elements that I enjoyed about the characters were like reduced down. Yep. So like Glinda's not exactly as funny.
Nowhere near as funny.
Yeah, they it's quite humorless. Not only is that the characters themselves don't have the charm that they once had, for them to be consistent with their actions, it just was very confusing for me. That's what really didn't make any sense.
I felt confused.
And if the songs had been good, I think that would have done it for me. I didn't think any of them were memorable or engaging enough.
Well, I think, you know what I think the problem is like, it's the climax of the story, and yet all the climax songs are in part one. There's no real climax songs that really feel like, when you compare. So the climax song in this one, actually, I don't know if this is kind of spoilery, so I won't name them, but Defying Gravity is obviously the climax of the first, and that has like a real kind of like power to it. And there's nothing even comes close to that. No. And yet in this one, the second film, that's when it needed it more, because that is when the story is concluding itself, and it just the music kind of didn't match that narrative need.
And to give it as much benefit of the doubt as possible, it's for me almost entirely a story issue. That's the crux of my issue with it.
Yeah.
And to be fair to the film, sorry, what can you really do? You've got the source
material is wrong, yeah.
Clearly, and I hadn't watched the musical before, so I didn't know that was the direction that it was going to end up going in. Mm-hmm. But, you know, your hands are tied. However, unfortunately for you, I'm kind of only able to judge it then on what you do beyond that. Yeah. And the redeemable qualities, like the singing is still excellent. I think the performances are still good. It just wasn't enough to undo that. Yeah. And a lot of the content, obviously, of the story is bad. The songs were way worse. There just wasn't as much to engage you. And even the characters themselves weren't as charmful or interesting as they had been before.
I think that's totally fair enough, mate. And I tell you what, I think with the thing that you said before, it's like, I actually think you would be quite willing to forgive them for being inconsistent with The Wizard of Oz if it did it in a way that was entertaining and interesting. The problem was it set up the writing exercise of, let's write something interesting that brings us to The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't bring it to The Wizard of Oz, and it doesn't do a very good job of doing it. Like, it would be totally fine if it was like, this is not the character that we see in the original 1939 film, but it was fucking awesome anyway.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that, unfortunately.
It wasn't. And a big thing that I was trying to come to grips with was, why on earth? What's the point if it's not consistent with Wizard of Oz? And this is something we're going to go in the special segment in a bit more detail.
Yeah.
When we go into the machine in a moment, we'll really go into the weeds of, you know, a few more spoiler specifics as to some of the inconsistencies. But later on, what I want to talk about is like, okay, so these two things, they're completely incongruent. You can't have the events of Wizard of Oz and the events of Wicked happening at the same time. There are many reasons why it can't happen. So why the fuck? Sorry, can swear. Why the fuck did you make it a Wizard of Oz thing? Why don't you just do a story?
Well, it's a fan fiction. You aware
Basically, it's a fan
No,
fiction.
it is a fan fiction.
Yeah, sorry, it's a fan fiction, but also it's a fan fiction that doesn't actually even align. So it's we go into
it's a bit half-assed, the like narrative exercise. It's like we're gonna make it kind of we're gonna make it Wizard of Oz in as much as we feel like it.
But what I have found out is why it's so different. So that's something that we'll go into.
You're gonna have to stay tuned in, because next we have The May Night Machine.
Yes.
So, timer.
Whoa! Whoa!
Right.
We're back. Are we even cutting them out?
We're back. No. It's probably lost to time, whatever that means. I don't even know why we still do that. Right. We're back from The May Night Machine. Woo. As you know, because we never left. So we've rated it in 9 different categories and taken the average, 7 of which are completely objective and only 2 are subjective. So Wicked for Good, out of 10 to 2 decimal places, 5.87.
Okay.
Which puts it just a hair behind Lilo and Stitch that came out.
Behind.
And just above Trap and Mission Impossible.
Yeah, pretty fair.
You know what? It had so much potential. I was
so excited to see, not having watched the musical, I was very excited to see how certain characters developed in terms of getting from where they were to where they are in Wizard of Oz. And that left me quite disappointed that it wasn't as I expected, but not in the good way.
Yeah, and a little bit bleak. I think I was a little bit forgiving in terms of enjoyment, because I am a little bit brought up in the whole the mania around it. I'm a bit excitable about it. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. What we've got next, we've got a few little bits from me. We've also got a campaign for Fred, who's going to try and convince the world that Wicked cannot be the same universe as the Wizard of Oz. It has to be a parallel.
Not possible. Going to go through some of the contradictions for you and make the case for a parallel universe.
So if you're on YouTube listening, don't forget to check us out on your favorite podcast platforms, specifically Spotify or Apple, because they're the ones that we're on.
Which are your favorites? Anyone who's on SoundCloud, get a life.
Who is even on there? And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.